What is up, everybody? It is your boy Lou Martinez here, live and direct from the Burrito Lounge in Chula Vista, as I like to call it. Live from the San Diego Latino Film Festival 2021 Hybrid Edition. We're winding down the festival over the next couple of days, but want to thank everybody that's been able to either come into the live drive-in events, that's going to be able to join us tomorrow for the closing night event, and also that has come and joined us virtually as part of the festival as one of the many screenings, and as well as all the Q&As and other talks that we've had along the way. Today, I'm lucky to be able to talk with the production team of a documentary that is quite a ride called 18th and Grand, about an iconic location in downtown LA. And I'm curious, I have a ton of questions for the team, so let's go ahead and bring them on. All right. We have Mr. Alberto Lopez, the composer, Steven, the director, Robert, the producer, and Carlos, Hall of Fame boxer, Carlos Palomino, joining us as well. Thank you guys, number one, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
One of the first things that struck me about the documentary is, and what I said in the introduction is that it can clearly be defined as a wild ride. It is infectious from beginning to end, how you guys switch from time frame to time frame, sport to sport, everything with its own accompanying music. And it's I guess a word for it would be relentless in how it comes at you. You know, there's very little room to like, okay, stop and absorb this. Let's start off with the director, Steven. Was that on purpose? Did you want it to be a little hectic, and because of the venue you were talking about, maybe?
Yes, exactly. I wanted the audience to feel the intensity of place, and it seemed suitable to take the audience on this ride and to keep going, to kind of get your head swirling as though you were in the venue, and when you finish it, you're just like, whoa, you know. And so we wanted to keep it going, and that was also the style of the editor, Shane McClafferty's very image dense and fast moving. His style is that, and I wanted to play to that. And also he's very strong with music, so having Alberto and the great music that he had played really well into the overall intention and style of the film.
Did the in the editing process, did the music come first, or did you give him a rough cut of the sequences and have Alberto work with it, or how did that collaboration take place?
A little bit of both. Alberto, you want to talk about it from your perspective?
Yeah, it was like an amazing experience. We were, I guess we were given, let me just clarify that I'm not the only composer. My band Jungle Fire, we are the composers. We are our unit. There were 8 of us in this case that composed the score, because we are a unit. We were given the roughs, I mean the temps, so like the sound alikes with the stuff that they had originally cut the first versions of the film, and it was just like trying to match. It was already like intense because it was really good music. You guys did a really great job of setting the mood with what you had. So what was tricky was finding matching the vibe, but being original at the same time, like not just sounding like somebody else, and trying to contribute to that, of hopefully in some cases even hopefully bettering what was there, just to make it more exciting, or to amplify like the vibe that they were trying to get.
Did you know ahead of time sort of the time periods and the sort of genres that did you do a little pre-work on that though?
There was, well, I mean, we were giving the temp tracks, and they ran the gamut all the way from jazz from the like Mexican folk songs from the 30s, and jazz from the 40s and 50s, to all this like rockabilly and like rock and roll from, it's like it was all over, electronica, like it was just because what I think Robert, Stephen and Robert and everybody did was just great, really take a snapshot of LA, what was really going on in LA in those decades. So it's like it was up to us to try to bring to life what like all this meant sonically, and so it was like we looked at it, we're like, whoa, usually you do one style for a score, and
Right.
This was just like, whoa. And
Well, you guys are taking everything from Zoot Suit era to punk rock, so, and everything in between.
Well, that was the great thing about Jungle Fire. I call them the modern day wrecking crew. They're able to really, truly, so musical and so diverse, and definitely put them through their paces. I mean, it was, I was like a bebop, slash, bebop tune to garage rock to all this stuff, and they were able to kind of like bring it to life. And as Alberto said, I think more than just bring it to life, they added so much vibrancy to the music, and gave it both a contemporary feel as well as a vintage feel. And so I couldn't be happier. Howard Parr, our music supervisor, connected us, and it was just a perfect fit.
When I was doing the research on you guys a little bit, because one of the things I love about doing these Q&As for the festival is that I make it a point not to know anything about the movies before I press play, because I really just want to really absorb it. But then I realized that we have Hall of Fame boxers. Robert, you worked on one of my favorite documentaries that I mentioned before. The Beats Rhyme and Live, The Tribe Called Quest doc, which I saw opening night. Thank you, by the way. Cool. My roommate jumped in, walked into the theater, and screamed out, "Can I kick it?" The whole theater responded. But with your history, I mean, as a producer, your steps in hip hop. Talk a little bit about the genesis of this project and what attracted it to you, and how long it's been going on. And because I saw that some of it took place a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, it's been going on for like about 6 or 7 years. And yeah, I was a producer, but I'm also primarily I'm a director of photography, so I'm a cinematographer.
Yeah.
And but I'm starting to produce more projects, things that attract me. And I met Steve. He had an art show with the photographs of Theo Errett, who is predominantly, is one of the core things running through the film. Steve and I met. We kind of started a friendship from that, and then one day he said, "I want to make a movie," and here we are.
7 years later.
Yeah. But no, man, I mean, I can get into it, but it's like anything else, man. It's super independent, no money. We did a Kickstarter. Tony, the DP, the cinematographer, is Steve's cousin. He had a whole package, because we really, even getting Carlos, it was like little bits by bits, and we built this whole ship out of it,
Yeah, no, one of the things that's, and I guess, and talk to me, like, the movie that I got into the festival was a movie we shot 3 years ago that I've been editing nonstop for the last, 3 years. So I understand about, how time consuming that could be. But, I try to take notes, and then I'm like, oh, okay, remember that Julio Cesar was in it. Oh, and then Rowdy Piper was in it. And then, oh my God, like I lost track of the amount of icons and celebrities that you guys had over these last 6 years. Like, what does it take to track all these people down? Or when you tell them about the subject, is everybody like happy to come on and share those stories?
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Well, I was going to say, like, I mean, speaking of Carlos, for example, I mean, I think, what I tried to do was to build trust from the beginning and build a good reputation, in that I would come prepared and come with the credibility of the other people that I'd interviewed. So, starting with Jean LaBelle, who was the son of Eileen Eaton, who ran the Olympic, and then he connected me with Don Chargan, who was the matchmaker at the Olympic. So I had a couple of, people who were very legitimate from the beginning. And then, so when I went to Carlos, I mean, Carlos, had enough, I don't know. You tell me, Carlos, why you were willing to let me interview you. But it was a beautiful day, I have to say. Like, when I interviewed Carlos,
We have somebody that can answer that question directly, right, Carlos?
Well, yeah. I mean, when he mentioned it to me, it was a no-brainer. I mean, that's where I grew up with my career. I came out of the Army in 1972, turned pro, and luckily enough, I got signed by the best manager in boxing at that time, Jackie McCoy. And Jackie was managing 3 world champions at that time, and they had all grown up at the Olympic. That's where they all initiated their careers, and I knew that's where I was going to go. So when he mentioned that to me, I said, yeah, absolutely, because I just had a great experience coming up at the Olympic. I had a great relationship with Eileen Eaton, and it was just, like I said, it was a no-brainer. I said yes right away.
So was the project always sort of centered around Eileen as the primary character, or did you guys discover once you started looking into the venue how iconic she was and how important? Did you always know about her, or how did the focus get to her?
Well, I mean, she's such a strong character that it was. I mean, I think the hardest part was, in a sense, keeping the balance, because the temptation always with a character as strong and unique as Eileen is to make it a biopic, because she has so much. She's just a singular person in boxing history, wrestling history, LA history, that it just, you're like, whoa. But what I wanted to do was, what was clear in interviewing people, and what was the hardest thing to balance, was the history of the building, the history of the city, and the history of Eileen, all kind of intertwining. And I wanted it to be about all three. The building is the sort of main character. The city gives it context, and Eileen gives it a sort of driving force that held it all together for the best years of it. And so the challenge was that was the challenge in editing, really, was how do you not make it fail on all three levels by trying to be too many things, because along the way it was hard. Sometimes when we were doing the edits, it would be like, it's not satisfying. So to make it work was the challenge. But what made it clear that it needed to also be more than just an Eileen story was the fact that it meant so much you could see the glimmer in people's eyes, and you see it in the film. When I talk about the Olympic Auditorium, it clearly meant something that's much bigger than an average arena. It's not like some generic sort of story of Staples Center. No disrespect to Staples Center, but there was something much more human and much more meaningful to people for generations. And so when I talked to Carlos, you just, the glimmer in his eye, how much it meant to him. But not just him, it's so many people, and still just fans through social media. It's like there is something here that's bigger than I sort of realized when I first started doing it. And I think I think sometimes it makes it a tricky sell because people go, oh, it's about a building. And it's like, it's not just a doc about a building. It's about something much greater.
Yeah, I mean, it would be, I guess, a little simple to say that it's also. I mean, it's very obvious to say it's also the story of LA, downtown LA, of that time frame of how it changed throughout the years. Carlos, I'm curious. Obviously, once you began your career, you realized that it was an iconic place and it was somewhere where your career was going to take place. But when you're growing up as a kid, do you have memories of it, just kind of like when you were first learning about boxing, or did you go there as a kid at all, or did it have history for you as well?
No, I had a huge history. My father was just a fanatic boxing fan. There was no other sport for him. Boxing was not my first love. I wanted to play baseball, and I snuck off one year in high school. In my junior year, I tried out for my high school baseball team. I made varsity team. I made varsity. He found out I was playing. He made me quit. He told me I had to get a job. He said there was no sports unless you box. He said, if you want to box, you can box. That's it. Otherwise, you have to work. And so we watched boxing every Thursday night from the Olympic Auditorium from the time we were kids. He would sit us next to him, me and my older brother, and we would watch, and he would tell us, look at that, see that, that's a jab, it's a right hand. It was like he was trying to prepare us for a boxing career right from the get-go. And so, yeah, we watched it. And he was a huge fan of roller derby and boxing. So we watched roller derby and we watched boxing. And so the first time I walked in there for my first pro fight, it was just a tremendous experience. And then, I had never been in the dungeons of what you call the dressing rooms at the Olympic Auditorium, because it was like you were walking into the Roman
like a gladiator
arena, man. It was just amazing. And I sat there just amazed, waiting for my turn. And there was a call that would come in for the next fight, and I just heard say, Palomino, you're up. And I had to run out of and into the ring. And it was it was my first 4-round fight. It was just an amazing experience. I will never forget it.
Did the fans stab you right away for your first fight, or did they wait till later on to try to stab
no,
you?
man. I mean, I was the first fight. I was the last fight of the night. So as I'm walking out towards the ring, fans are leaving the arena because they already saw the main event. And I'm walking out, and fans are leaving. They don't know who Carlos Palomino is. As my first pro fight, and I hadn't gotten much press. I mean, even though I came out of the Army, I was number one amateur in the country in 1972. I won the national AAU championship. I was all Army champion, all service champion, but didn't get a lot of press and during that time. And I was just another kid getting my first pro fight in the Olympic Auditorium.
I want to ask some more production questions, but Carlos, I wanted to ask you again. I know you have a history with the building. They say obviously, like when you go see a baseball game, you shouldn't sit in the front row. You should sit up at top so that you kind of appreciate it when you do get the better seats. So you're watching it from a TV, and then you're in there. You had to at least take a moment to appreciate that, right?
Oh yeah, it was just I never really thought that would happen. I mean, like I said, I didn't really want to box. My father was pushing it on me and my brother, and I actually told him at 14 years old, I'm never going to box. You can kill me if you want to, but I'm never going to do it. I want to play baseball. I want to play second base for the Dodgers. That's what I told him. And he said, you're never going to do that. So when I went in the Army, all of a sudden I joined a boxing gym just to get in shape for basic training, and I got approached by the guy who actually became my trainer for the rest of my career, a man named Noe Cruz, who boxed in the Navy, and he was the one who said, you want to box? I said, no, not really. I'm just getting in shape. And he said, why? I said, I'm going in the Army. He said, well, you can box in the Army. And he kind of put that idea in my head. And once I got into the Army, did my basic training, I got to Fort Hood where I was sent, and there was a Fort Hood boxing championships. So automatically I said, this is it. I'll sign up for it and see what happens. And, it just came very natural to me because I had experienced it just about my whole life because of my father. He always had boxing gloves at the house, and from the time we were kids. My brother and I had to spar each other for his entertainment most weekends. And and he taught us what he knew a little bit because he loved it, and he tried to learn himself. And first time I stepped in the ring as an amateur, it was just so easy. I spent 3 years in Tijuana as a kid when my dad was trying to immigrate the family to the United States. And we lived in Tijuana in the area that was considered to be low income, which is poverty, and third world country. And so my brother and I shined shoes on the weekends to help make some money for the house, and we ended up getting into street fights just about every day I was out there. And so when you're not getting bitten, when somebody's not trying to stab you, it was easy. So once I climbed the ring, and there was a referee who said break. I said, wow, this is nice, this is easy. And I also, I would call home and I would tell my dad, I say, hey, I'm going to box next week in a tournament. And he'd say, you're going to win it. I said, what do you mean I'm going to win it? You're going to win it. And he'd say, what are you doing what are you training? And so I would tell him, all these things. We're running 5 miles, we're working in the gym 2 hours. And he would tell me, do more. And I would be like, what do you mean do more? I mean, I'm already running 5 miles every morning. And he said, just do more, get in better shape than everybody else. So I just started doing everything he said. I'd run 8 miles instead of 5. I stay in the gym 3 hours instead of 2. And in the beginning, when I was just learning the technique, I just thought I hustled everybody. I threw more punches. I was in better shape, and I was winning tournaments. And it wasn't until I got out after winning All Army, All Service, National AU Championship, going to number 1 in the country as an amateur, that I started to get. My manager, Jack McCoy, who had managed world champions, looked at me first time I spar, and he said, you're going to get killed fighting like that as a pro. So it took about 6 months of just changing my whole style, learning how to throw punches like a professional. And I just absorbed everything that they told me. And so I learned quickly, and I was able to have a successful career at the Olympic. And all those fights at the Olympic were just amazing because the Mexican crowds, man, they wanted to see fights. They didn't want to see any dancing and running around the ring. They wanted to see wars. And when you gave them what they wanted to see, they loved you.
Did you eventually realize or grow the passion for boxing that your dad wanted for you? Did he ever tell you, like, see, I told you I was right, or that you should have been a boxer? Or did you ever think about doing like a Michael Jordan and retiring for a couple of years and playing in the minor leagues or something?
No. Yeah, no. Once I won my first Army championship,
Okay.
and then I was in Las Vegas in a tournament that I won, and I had people running up to me, handing me their cards and telling me, you want to turn pro, give me a call. I'm a manager. I'm a this and that. I was like, oh, okay. Okay. I got a shot here. And then right then, I told myself, this is it. You're gonna go for it. And some of my teammates in the Army tell me that I told them, I don't remember this, but they tell me I told them that I was going to leave the Army, get out of the Army after my term was up, turn pro, and become a world champion. And so I didn't remember saying those things because I wasn't that kind of guy that that kind of bragged, but I was serious. Once it entered my mind that I could have a career and do something special in the game. My focus was to win a world title and to defend it as many times as I could.
Yeah, and you did just that.
Yeah.
Stephen and and Robert, I guess you talked a little bit about the different drafts, I guess, of the film, in terms of like finding the right balance between the character, between the city, between the building. Also with the, like I said, losing count of the icons that you got to interview that were there. How hard was it to, I'm assuming, cut some of that out in terms of like just leaving the parts that really fed the story that you were telling, because we're in the era of release the Snyder cut, right? So is there like a DeBro or like a Benavides cut that's like like 4.5 hours long, that's got like all the interviews and stuff?
The original, yeah, it was like 5 hours long. And then it whittled down. It was hard. It was really hard because, there's so much great material, and obviously I certainly have hopes to find ways to utilize that material at a later date in one form or another. But yeah, it was tricky. Rob saw a million versions along the way, and a lot of times it wasn't working, right? It would just drag or something. It was
yeah.
hard.
I will say, yeah, it wasn't an easy edit, right, Steve? It was a lot of work. Luis, you talked about like it's a roller coaster ride, and it's true. I think one of the things, especially nowadays with everything moving so fast, we have a lot of period stuff, you know what I mean? And a lot of, even for a younger audience, it's like, we were not in, no disrespect to PBS, because I love PBS. It's like, but we didn't want to make just like a period film that's just, here's the black and white photo. And I think, like just what Steve said, Shane and Jungle Fire really augmented that. You know what I mean? Like, it's a pop culture movie. And yes, there's more stuff that we have that couldn't make it into the film. And we're lucky that we had an overabundance. I'd rather have too much than too little. So, like Steve said, there's a whole catalog of stuff that hopefully we will bring to the audience soon.
Well, we got to ask the editor that question, right? Obviously.
Yeah, there was a lot of story work done. It was Shane McLafferty was our primary editor, but Mary McNulty and myself spent just days and days and months just combing and fine tuning to really eliminate anything extraneous that wasn't propelling the narrative forward.
Right.
Because it really was, we were very cognizant of the fact that, as Robert said, there's a lot of period stuff that was great. It was interesting, but in a way, it was drawing it. I felt like if it's starting to bore me, then it's certainly going to bore the audience. And I really felt like, brevity was what I wanted to tell the story in a tight fashion and leave people wanting more. It's like going to see a band. Do you want to see a band that plays for that was great, I loved the first hour and 20 minutes, but then they played another 10 songs and I was bored by the end and I wanted to leave? I'd rather them play the hour 20 and go, God, I wish they played more. And then I'll come back again and see them the next time. So, that it was a hard balance, but I'm glad we made the choices we did.
It's almost like you were trying to make a movie for the audience that would go to the Olympic, right? They want action, 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 no filler.
Yes, that's it. I wanted it to sort of be if when you went to the Olympic, you experienced almost a hallucinatory level of intensity and you got outside yourself. I mean, I sort of, I always look at, when I can have an experience where I get a chance to almost like leave my own consciousness and be totally present in the room. And so I was trying to do that as much as possible within this film, was where you enter a world, and that world, we're controlling that world as the director and the production team, and the great characters, and the funny lines and the sad lines, and there's an emotional arc to this film, and a story arc, and something that I wanted to get across about this era that came to an end and had a rise and fall, and that the violence had consequences as well. So it wasn't just a painless, just a exercise in nostalgia, or something that was completely just mindless. I wanted that to have a sting.
Yeah.
To feel something and care about the people and care about the losses. So that's.
Robert, did you want to add to that, Robert?
No, I was just gonna. Yeah, the last thing I'll add to that, it's a legacy movie. You know what I mean? It's like people like Carlos, people like Enrique Bolaños, all these people. As you saw at the end of the film, I mean, we lost like 10 to 12 people in the making of this movie. Yeah. It was a once in a lifetime thing, and some of the reviews that we've gotten, they remark on that. You know what I mean? Even down to the music, like Steve tried to get all Los Angeles art-based artists having Jungle Fire as well, doing the original music. And I will just add that the Jungle Fire sound, to me, I'll just add, when you guys were talking about it, Alberto, I think I mentioned it to Steve, there have been moments in the film where I'm like, who did that? And then he's like, Jungle Fire. I'm like, oh my God, it's like the variety. So it's just a good, mix of things. So, but yeah, long story, it's a legacy film, man. It's a legacy movie.
One of the things that I noticed, and at first I was like, as a filmmaker, I was like, why didn't they save that first shot of the movie of what the building is now till the end to sort of leave a little mystery? But that's kind of like how like the Netflix documentaries go, where they have that key piece of information. This building is now a church, and they take you around and they're like, oh, here it is. But you guys put that right in front. So there's not an expectation of, oh, I wonder if like they remodeled this or it's, something else now. Like, it's very bluntly, this is something that's no longer here, and we're going to talk about the past, nostalgia, what it meant, sort of a post-mortem of that era. And then, but I think it does bring, after watching it, after getting out of my director mode, it does impact you, that you're like, okay, well, I guess the only part that I don't know is, how did it get to that point? Like, what will you tell us a little bit about that mismanagement toward the end when things changed after Eileen and everything like that? But is that sort of, I guess that would have maybe brought it too down if you guys went too deep into like the ending, like the last legs of it, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, there were plenty of, after Eileen died, there were plenty of interesting things that happened at the Olympic. I mean, Rage Against the Machine played their final show there. There were raves, there were huge riots at raves there. There were, Green Day, American Idiot premiered there. And there were some great fights and big fighters that happened after that era. But in a sense, it's a bit of I wouldn't say, it's not a fable, but it had I felt like 1980 was a very pivotal year, on so many levels, in which both in the city, in the country, Reagan was Reagan era, Eileen passes, punk rock starts, the city is decaying, and it felt like, as I was looking at it from the beginning, and Eileen's story and the building story, it felt like it broke along real specific sort of timelines. And so to me, the whole like, okay, we could have then gone into the disillusion of what happened in the final show in 2005, but
there's only so much time, man.
Right.
There's only so much, and it also just felt like there was a coherence to the storyline that I wanted to follow.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it was about kind of the end. Like the rest was sort of, important moments, but not a thread, not a a dramatic thing.
Yeah, and I think where you ended it was good, but to answer that, I think, and it's like we just served it up. Now there's so many other things that happen there. Now people can do their own research, or we produce more stuff. You'll see more. You know, and the building is still there. It's a Korean church. You know what I mean? It didn't go anywhere. I saw shows there. I was filming at the Rage Against Machine show. That building is still. The sightlines, as Carlos knows, as a lot of people know, they're amazing sightlines in that place.
Yeah. Look, I felt like if I was doing like a New York comparison, it's like if Madison Square Garden turned into like CBGB's, like at some point, you know, like an iconic venue that turned into an iconic venue for a different scene, right?
Yeah.
As a cinematographer, Robert, and but now going into producing, how do you stop yourself from sort of meddling or giving too much feedback on that aspect of it? Do you try to stay to your lane? Do you try to make it a collaborative process for that, or how is that transition for you?
I try. I mean, you know, so I'm still, you know, the it's not a full transition. It's like per project. So I'm always going to be a cinematographer. But I will say that, yeah, I mean, whoever's shooting with us, I respect that. But I definitely, that's part of producing. I have a hand in that as well. So like, as Steve knows, like, you know, one of the things we always try to shoot into a corner, don't shoot into a flat wall. There's some basic tenements that I try to, as a producer, guide the team with. And, you know, it's just more like overseeing it. So, you know, I try to like not get too involved, but at the same time, protect the integrity of the project. So, yeah, you know what I mean?
That needs to be a nifty 50. So you set up rules for the cinematographer, or not rules, but parameters, or I guess kind of like just. I
mean, it's all. This one was very collaborative, and Tony did a great job, and you know he's got a great eye. You know what I mean? So it was more like I'm looking at it, yeah, from a producer side and the storytelling point, like you know. Like even the drone stuff, like that was something we did later on in the film. You know what I mean? Like we didn't have access, unfortunately. That's a whole other story to shoot inside. But it still worked out okay. You know what I mean? So having those drone shots and seeing the building in relationship to the city was super critical. You know?
Absolutely.
And to go back to your other question about like showing it at the beginning of the film as it is now. Part of that was also to just sort of give context to this building that people drive by every day and don't know what, like, and to give a sense of like where this sits in the city. I mean, it's like a building, like so many historic buildings that have kind of like, that they disappear into the background that were once incredibly vital. And not to say it's not vital to the Korean church that use it now, but it used to be obviously this central hub in the city. And we now take it for granted. We've sort of forgotten it, even though it's right there. It's like one of the busiest sections of freeway in the world, and it's still it's like that's you know So that's just wanted to
point. Yeah, that's a good point, Steve, for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. It feels like you might be driving past there, and the Uber driver might be like, "Hey, they filmed Rocky there." You'd be like, oh, okay. Huh.
Well, hopefully for this movie, they'll be doing that more often, because I can't tell you, I mean, a lot of people don't know what that building is.
Yeah. Absolutely. Guys, we're live here from the San Diego Latino Film Festival Virtual Edition 2021, talking with the crew, producers, directors, composers, and boxers that make up the movie 18th and Grand, about an iconic venue in downtown LA. You can still watch this movie right now. If you're tuning in for the Q&A, just go to the Eventive page for the SD Latino Film Festival. You can buy a pass to it, and then you have 24 hours from the moment you buy it to finish watching it. So you can buy it, come back, watch the rest of the Q&A, pause it, go what, you know, whatever. Anyway, but anyway, I was, compared to other movies that I've seen, documentaries that I've seen for the festival this year, we watched one called 499, which was a very slow-paced, deliberate, give you time in between when it's changing sort of theme. Like I said, this is a wild ride. You never once get a chance to like breathe. You're just filled with icons and people, and and then like, are they going to focus on Chavez? Are they going to focus on Piper? Oh my God, Andre the Giant was there. Muhammad Ali was there. Like, you're talking about goats and goats and goats all over the place.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask Alberto about his process for the score. Obviously, you have an idea of what the movie's about the genres, the time periods. You get the temp tracks. When you have a rough cut and you're gonna start doing work, do you like just sit and think about it in your head for a little bit, watch it over and over a couple of times? Are you like playing melodies or something when you're watching it? Do you have the whole crew with you and you guys throw ideas off the wall? How does that start for you?
You know, that's an ideal situation.
Okay.
I mean, most of the time it was like, we would like to use this like taste of honey, but it's impossible because it's like way too expensive. Can you have a version of it by tomorrow morning? You know, and it's like, what am I gonna say? No, of course. And it's like, it's like 6:30 in the afternoon. It's like, yeah, we would like to turn in a mix around 9 a.m. So it's like, we're a band of anywhere from 8 to 10 guys. So
Wow.
imagine like getting on the phone and be like, okay, guys, we got to do this, And this is like, get in and look at it, do it, record it, mix it, send it off, and be like, how was it, Steve? At like 4 a.m.
Wow.
Cool.
You get on the group chat and say it's time to make the donuts, right?
That's a lot of the time it was like that. So sometimes we did have the luxury. There's a couple of tracks that we did have the luxury of doing and redoing, sitting with them and figuring out what worked or what other things to explore.
Did you change a lot of instruments, or did you guys kind of keep it steady for the different genres? Did you do full different sets of instrumentation and stuff like that?
Yeah, we tried to, even though we have such a big band that we just end up being able to match most of the instrumentation of the things that we were playing for the score. So, if it was like a boogie woogie type big band vibe, cool. We have enough instruments. We have the band to do that. If it was like a psychedelic rock thing, cool. We have a psychedelic rock elements in our band. If it's like a bebop or the only time we kind of went out of our zone as a group was to do like the more traditional Mexican stuff. Then that I hit up the group Quetzal, which I'm also a part of, and so like Jungle Fire doesn't do traditional Mexican music. Like we were going to actually, and we're like, why not just do it with people who really do this right? And so Marta and Quetzal wrote this beautiful song.
Okay.
But then that was against the clock because it was just like, oh my God, we got to do this by like 2 days from now. And it's like, everybody's got families and stuff. So it's like, they got to write this song. I got to go to their living room and record them there and then come and overdub the stuff here and edit it and mix it and send it off, see if it's okay.
Did you ever come to a place where maybe Steven says, this is kind of what you like and you do that for them, but then you're also like, but I think something like this might work better?
We had a couple moments like that, and vice versa.
Yeah, there was definitely there were a couple of really beautiful transition pieces. I'm thinking about the Eileen intro section where you guys came up with a really beautiful thing that I would never have thought of. And when I first heard it, I was like, is this working? And then I was like, now I can't imagine it without that. And, I think a lot of these growing pains for me and, making it sort of hard on Alberto in some ways was being as a first-time director. And the fact that, I had a lot of songs that were sort of in my head and that I sort of fell in love with in the rough cuts that became my templates. And I think in the future, especially now knowing and trusting Alberto and Jungle Fire, so for hopefully the next thing that we do, it'll be a much more kind of bring them in earlier in the process so that it is sort of more, it just leaves a little more room.
For collaboration.
And a little more, a little more collaborative. I mean, it certainly was a collaboration, but I like to give people room. And let people bring their own point of view to things. Generally speaking, I am a control freak, of course, being a director. But on the other side, I try not to be too much of a control freak and want to have people bring their input to things earlier in the process. But yeah, just it's one of those things.
Excellent.
From our point of view, it's actually it might seem hectic. It's normal in our life, but it was actually a breath of fresh air. Breath of fresh air is that actually Steve knows what he's talking about when it comes to music. He's like he's a music industry guy too, and so in one of his many past lives. So and so like he knows music, and so like it wasn't like, can you make it sound like blue candy canes or something? It's like, no.
I can be specific in that
direction.
Very specific.
Yeah, I believe, as a director, I think you got to be like a consensus builder, like I've always found, which is like, hey, water's wet. When you step into water with wet socks, it sucks, and it's raining today. It's like you gotta. Well, at least for narratives and stuff like that. I wanted to ask Carlos a couple of different questions. Obviously, as the person here who lived through the events that are depicted in the movie for a good period of it. Number one, how do you feel? Do you feel it does justice to the time frame and to the building? And number two, seeing the movie and seeing all these icons, can you tell us a little bit about what it was when you began to get reach a celebrity status in LA during that time, and kind of who you were rubbing elbows with, and kind of what it was like in that scene?
Well, the venue, just competing in that place was unbelievable. Just because of the fan base, the Mexican fan base was just amazing. And I'm not really sure as far as when people really started to notice me. I didn't fight on those early fights in my career, 4-rounders, 6-rounders. They were not on TV. They were so it wasn't until I became a main event fighter, where I was fighting 10-round fights, that people started to notice me. And of course, Eileen had noticed me from the beginning, because Jackie McCoy signed me, and she and Jackie worked together, because Jackie was managing world champion Mondo Ramos, Frankie Crawford, Rob Rojas, all guys that came up at the Olympic and became world champions. So she knew about me, and she actually was very nice to me, and she talked to me, and she knew I was going to school, because I was going to college at the same time that I was pursuing my boxing career, and she was always gave me advice to make sure that I stayed in school, and that I, contemporary, that I was making sure that I separated both, and it wasn't really, I think the first time that I can really tell you a story, that one night after one of my second 10-round fight that I won early, I had an early knockout. So, I went home, and I had a couple of friends call me up, and they said, "What are you going to do? I mean, it's early." Usually after a fight, I went to bed, but they came to pick me up, and they took me to a club, and I was standing in line waiting to get in, and it was in Huntington Beach, and there was a guy in the front of the line that was letting people in. He was a Mexican guy from East LA, and he actually looked up down the line. He saw me. He came up to me. "Hey, you're Carlos Palomino?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Come on in, man." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Oh, I saw you. I watch you fight all the time at the Olympic, man. Come on in." So he got me and my friends came in. That was the first time I realized that I was a celebrity. They opened the rope up, and I was able to walk through it.
Nice.
And, but it wasn't really until I won the title that actually I got a lot of press, a lot of media, and then, just going to restaurants in my hometown where I grew up in Westminster. People right away, you could see people with, hey, that's Carlos Palomino. And the people would notice me. People come over, want an autograph, want to take a picture with me. So, yeah, it wasn't really till, 1975, 76 when all that started to happen.
Yeah, and then you start getting you're on TV shows. You're doing Miller Lite commercials, right? Then that all there started.
Well, it was really I was going to school. I was going to get a degree. I was going to go finish my boxing career early. I wanted to retire at 30 years old, and I was going to go into. I was already working for the city of Westminster part time in the Parks and Recreation program, and I was studying, got a degree in Parks and Recreation Administration. So I was going to get a job with the city of Westminster. But I took a drama class in college, and I was like, wow, this is kind of nice. I like this. And then in 1977, I got a call from the show Taxi, and they said, we'd like you to come and do the show. And I was like, well, I'm not an actor. And they said, well, it's okay. You're going to play yourself. You're going to play a world champion that knocks out Tony Danza. So I said, okay.
Hey.
I went, did the show. I fell in love with it. I just, I talked to Tony. I talked to Danny DeVito, all those guys. I just say, I want to do this. What do I do? And they told me, you got to, get into some acting classes, get an agent, get a manager. And so I decided, okay, well, I'm going to retire, at 30, and I'm going to pursue this acting career. And I got right into acting classes, and got my first show with a Taxi, and just started working. Got a great opportunity to audition for that light beer commercial. They flew me to New York to audition, and got the spot and did it, and it just became I still sometimes go somewhere and people say, "Don't drink the water."
That commercial is legendary, Carlos. I think Steve remembers it because I grew up, seeing that commercial, and I'll just say, like, when I saw that, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's Carlos Palomino!" It's such a classic, bro. I'm so glad that's in the movie too.
Yeah. I love that. I'm glad that he used it. I had no idea.
Yeah, I was like, that's just, it has to be in the film. It has to.
Classic. It has to. Okay, all right. One last boxing question for Carlos, since we got him on here. Just, can you give me just your thoughts on just the boxers of today? One of the things that hit me was when Chavez was talking about that the Mexican fighter fights for a need because he wants to feed his family.
Yeah.
It's been said that during American history, the boxers are usually minorities, or you can tell who the people that are struggling in the country are because they're the boxers from when they were Irish or Italian or whatever in the early centuries.
Yeah.
What is your feeling about the boxing world today, and how would somebody like Canelo Alvarez do, like if he was at the Olympic, like if in front of like that raucous crowd on top of them? How do you feel that boxers today would do?
Well, I mean, boxing is boxing, but I think it's gotten a little different now. It's because of the money these guys are making. I mean, I love Ryan Garcia, who's an up and coming kid, but he's got 1 million followers on Twitter or whatever, and he's making already millions of dollars, and it's all about the hype now instead of the actual fighter and the fights that you grow up, that you build your career in on. In the Olympic Auditorium, I mean, you had to fight. I mean, there was no easy fights. I mean, I defended my title, and the Olympic and the World Boxing Council selected who I was going to defend my title against. I wasn't picking my opponents; they were. I fought 4 number 1 contenders in 7 title defenses. I mean, who does that now? Nobody fights the number 1 contenders. They pick their opponents. I mean, there's a lot of talent. I mean, Ryan Garcia is a very talented young fighter. And there's a lot of young people with a lot of great amateur experience that are doing great as pros right now. but it's more about the hype. It's more about the publicity and you know how many Facebook people you have following you. So I think that's all the difference is the money they're making and the power they have to make their own decisions in their own careers. Now Canelo to me is he's a old school fighter. I mean, I think he would do well in any era, because I think he's just one of those kind of guys that works hard for every fight. He's always in great shape.
He's not ducking anybody.
He's not ducking anybody, and I mean, to go all the way up to 175. I mean, he's not a big guy. I mean, when I saw him win his first title as a welterweight, he's like a 5'7", 147 pounder. Now he's fighting 5'7", 175 pound against a guy that's like 6'2", 6'3". To me, I'm amazed that he's been able to move up and down both weight classes the way he has. Because
what's the heaviest you fought at?
No, I was 147 my whole career, and I didn't want to move up. I don't want to go fight with 154 pounder that are going to hit a little bit harder. So I just, I stayed at 147, retired at 147, and that's
there you go.
And I'm like 160 now, so I'm okay.
Okay, I know I said that was the last one, but any fighter past that after your generation that you think your style would have matched up well with?
No, I think my style I could be fighting right now and competing with the top guys. My fight with Duran was a 10-round classic, battle of the one thing that you don't see now. Fighters really don't understand how to fight inside. I could fight outside. I could fight inside. When I fought Armando Muniz at the Olympic Auditorium, he was in my chest for 15 rounds. And for the first 7-8 rounds, I fought the wrong fight. I was trying to fight his fight. And then I went outside and I ended up, stopping him in the 15th round. The thing that I noticed about young fighters today is they don't really know how to fight on the inside, and that's the difference too. I think back in my day, like Durant could move in and out. There's a lot of guys that could do that. You don't see that now too much. I think just like Canelo, and I can go back to when I was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. I was talking to the Golden Boy was there, the original Golden Boy, Art Aragon, and I was talking to him, and he told me, I like your style. You could have fought it in any time in the history of boxing. So that feels good when people tell you that you can compete in any era of boxing, I just felt like that's what I brought to the table when I fought.
And recently, Hagler passed away within the last week, who was another icon of that era. Did you guys know if he ever fought at the Olympic? Did you ever cross paths with him, Carlos?
Yeah, I don't think he fought at the Olympic, but
he did one time. He fought Doug Demings at the Olympic Auditorium in 19. It was his first trip from the East Coast, and he fought on the undercard of a CBS. So it's actually, you can watch it on YouTube. It's a really good fight. He dominates pretty well. I mean, Demings was a decent fighter, but over time, Hagler just wears him out.
Yeah, I met Marvin in Canastota, New York, at the International Boxing Hall of Fame. When I was inducted, he was there. He had already been inducted, and we kind of hung out and we talked. Because he retired and went to Italy and did a bunch of movies.
He walked away he was like,
he was frustrated after the Sugar Ray Leonard fight, fed up with boxing, and went to Italy. He did a bunch of spaghetti westerns, and we were talking about that because I was pursuing my acting career here, and he told me that he was trying to get it he was trying to get started in the United States because he had done all his movies in Italy. So yeah, we had a great time together. He was just a great guy. It was very, very sad to see when I heard, that he had passed.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, a loss and just one of the greatest. And if you ever want to just YouTube some of his fights, it's a fun. I could literally talk with each of you guys probably for an hour about the different things that make you guys unique. But the fact that you're all part of this unique, singular project is awesome. I wanted to talk a little bit about the wrestling aspect, before we go, because obviously, entertainment, right? It's almost, the Gorgeous and all the other characters of that golden era of wrestling. Robert and Steven, obviously there's the punk rock, there's the roller derby, there's the boxing, there's the wrestling, there's the characters, and you guys switch back and forth. Did one of those, did you guys at one point sort of be like, man, maybe we could do the whole thing just on the wrestling, right? Like that you could.
Wrestling was, wrestling deserves its own, just wrestling at the Olympic deserves its own documentary for sure. And it goes back to this opening of the building. The early, the 20s also had its own era of wrestling that happened. That happened at the Olympic, and then the era when at the birth of television, the wrestling was enormous, and Gorgeous George and Baron Leone and all of these lords and these huge personalities and great characters were part of it. So Gene LaBelle himself, though he was a multi-talented guy with a lot of different careers. He was the Hangman, was his wrestling character, but was a great wrestler. And he introduced us to Roddy Piper, which was a very that interview was incredibly memorable, and it was a great so wrestling was great. I have a lot of material.
Yeah, I'll say a thing, and I've said it in a couple of interviews, but I think it has to be said. So here at the San Diego Latino Film Festival, the lineage of the Olympic, it starts. There's a lineage that goes from modern, and Carlos, you'll probably get a kick out of it. So like Gorgeous George, and this is stuff that you saw in the film. Gorgeous George starts it off. He's this guy who becomes the villain, who's taunting the crowd. You know what I mean? He's got his bobby pins, and everybody goes there to see him lose. Then later on, Art Aragon comes along. Art Aragon does the same thing, right? Art Aragon does it. He taunts the crowd. Freddie Blassie comes in. He's got the gift of gab. He starts yapping away and doing his thing. Muhammad Ali meets Eileen Eaton. She's like, hey, call yourself the greatest. Be that guy. He starts doing that. We can go all the way to Floyd Mayweather, and it can go all the way to Conor McGregor. All that shtick, if you want to call it starts at the Olympic.
Yeah.
You back me up on that, Carl?
Absolutely, man. I can. Yeah.
It's an interesting thing, man. It's super. Yeah. I learned that making the film, man. I
remember, Carlos, you said when we interviewed you, you said that Eileen brought that wrestling promotion into boxing in some ways. She was a show person, so she understood that aspect of it.
Yeah, we used to have to be. We would have to show up the week before we fought, especially when I started fighting main events, and we'd get interviewed in the ring, but the questions were pre-written, so it was like she wanted you to talk bad about talk trash about your opponent. That wasn't that kind of guy. I was going like, no, what are you talking about? And I told her I can't do that. I just interview me, and I'll just, no, they were like, she wanted you to, everything was scripted, and you had to be a bad guy or be the good guy. And she brought that to boxing at the Olympic Auditorium, and it was just, it was crazy.
She understood how to build heroes and villains, and that those archetypes of wrestling also work in all any aspect of show business, you know, that you come across, and that people will come to boo you as much as they'll come to cheer you, and in fact maybe more.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I mean, we just lived with a president that was a wrestling villain, more or less. And you know, he had, I don't want to get political. But that was he as, and I don't even know if he was sincere. I think he understood how to be a villain and to be committed to being a villain.
A heel. People wanted a heel.
That's right.
All right, guys. Well, we spent an hour with the crew here. I want to ask you guys just one last question before, and we didn't even get to the roller derby stuff, which is like another huge part of it. Like this documentary has everything. It has incredible music, has stories about women empowerment, breaking glass ceilings, boxing legends, wrestling legends, roller derby legends, punk rock legends. For a first-time director, Stephen, kudos, senor. Kudos. What's one? I mean, I'll let you give a last word here in terms of something you want people to know about the doc, or what you want the doc to accomplish.
Well, I mean, one of the things that's been nice that people have said to me is that they didn't care about wrestling or boxing and still love the movie. That you don't have to be a fan. It's great for the fans, of course, but it's a story. It's about it's about this woman who ran the Olympic on one level, who's quite remarkable and deserves to be remembered. But beyond that, it's about the passage of time, what we've lost, and it's emotional for me, and I think it's kind of an emotional film, and I think Carlos is a part of that emotional core too, because you feel his feelings about the Olympic Auditorium. You feel Don Chargan, who, God rest his soul. You feel his, and so it's anyway. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have made it. I'm grateful for the team that all collaborated in making it. I'm grateful for the people who contributed their stories and gave their hearts on camera and let us tell the story. So I just hope people get a chance to see it and enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely. It takes you on an incredible ride. You learn a lot. As a fan of different sports, obviously I was in, but as a fan of filmmaking and as a director myself and an editor, I saw the hard work that you guys put in. I understand. I'm assuming Robert was probably in hell trying to get archival footage and pictures and all this other stuff. The music that Alberto and his people put together came out incredibly. I could literally, and I have my own podcast and stream, so I'm asking, but I could literally do an interview with each of you about each of this. Talk Carlos about boxing, talk to Robert about your projects. Robert, and I know you got some hip hop projects as well coming in, and some other stuff that's happening. So I can't wait to see what you guys do, and I'm thankful that you guys took the time to show it at the festival. And I'm thankful to Ethan, Moises, and Juan that they allowed me to do the Q&A and to come at it from the perspective of a fan as a filmmaker. So thank you guys very much for coming for talking with me today.
Thank you.
And if you need somebody for that Jay Dilla documentary, Robert, I got you. That's me. That's me right here, man. All right. So thank you, everybody that's watching tonight. Everybody, make sure you guys watch some more movies. You can still watch this movie today as part of the festival. Just you can order it, and then you'll have 24 hours. Just go to SD Latino Film, and you'll find it from there. So from me, myself, Lou Martinez, and everybody here at the festival, thank you guys for being with us tonight, and thank you for being a part of this. Good luck to you guys in your film, and I'll be talking to you guys soon, hopefully.
All right. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take it easy, guys.
Thank you.
Bye bye.